What the exchanges have been asking the SEC for years is permission to increase the charges that they put on investors for the data that people need to trade in today's stock market. At the speed that today's stock market works at, if you don't have the best data, you can't trade in our markets. And the exchanges have been raising the cost of those fees for investors across the country for years.
Meaning these are different data streams, and if you pay more, you get a faster stream that gives you more in-depth information?
That's right. Well, we have a two-tiered system for data in the United States on our markets. First, public data, and then private data, which is sold by for-profit exchanges. Now, here's the important thing. The exchanges run the public feed, which is kind of letting Barnes & Noble run your library. You wouldn't be too surprised if you showed up at the library and there weren't too many books, and that's what we have in the United States today.
So in other words, the data that is offered publicly for free, you're saying it's not sufficient?
Well, what's clear is that not only is it not sufficient, but it's slow. Now, there have been some improvements made over the last few years since Michael Lewis published his famous book, Flash Boys. But the problem we have is that the exchanges have no incentive to have a good public feed because they make money selling a private one. So why should they make it robust?
Is it their responsibility, though? And you said it's for-profit, right? It is the for-profit side of the exchange. They're supposed to try to maximize profits, right? Unless there's some monopolistic practices going on, this is what they're supposed to do.
Well, that's exactly right. And you can't blame exchanges for trying to make money. And I'm sure Adina will come in soon and explain how hard she's been working to make as much money as she can.
I'm worried the SEC is good. That you're talking about price controls. You don't like prices going up, so you're going to put on price controls, and you're not going to let a private entity decide what the information is worth?
No, sir. I'm going to make them prove that they're doing it competitively.
Is everybody going to have to prove that? Oh, competitively?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Do you think they're gougers? Do you think that they are deliberately gouging people right now with intent?
What I think they haven't done is prove that competition rather than their market power is leading to price increases. And what my job is to make sure that American investors only pay competitive prices.
You know, people
when they trade on
think
exchanges.
it's not investors. I think it's Goldman Sachs and J.P. Morgan. And you think about the trading costs for the individual investor. It's just gone down year after year after year after year. And if you look at total profits that exchanges are making, I mean, they got to make it somewhere, don't they?
You know, man, there is no better way to hide a monopoly rent than inside prices.
Is this really now? The guys on the SEC that are Republicans, the guys and gals that are Republicans, just said that there's been not enough information provided by the exchanges to show that it's not monopolistic? Is that what you're looking for? Or?
Well, let me just say about this. This idea that this is a fight between Goldman and the exchanges makes no sense. And the reason is, there's no free lunch in the stock market. You guys know that. You talk about this every day. If the exchanges are charging investors money for data and information and connectivity, at the end of the day, mom and pop pay for that because Goldman Sachs doesn't give them a break.
Mom and pop are paying. It's never been cheaper. It's like complaining about long-distance phone calls now. They're basically free.
If you have
yeah, great. It is about long-distance phone calls. How'd that turn out?
Yeah, if you have Fidelity and if you have Charles Schwab and all of these different exchanges paying it, they're saying, or all of these different trading platforms paying it, they say it eventually gets passed on to the consumer. But the argument you're making isn't an argument to not allow them to raise fees. It's almost an argument to not allow these two different streams. Should there be a public and a private data stream? Should you be able to pay your way to better access? These
are great questions. And this week at the SEC, we had a roundtable debate where all of the folks, including the exchanges, by the way, came in to tell us what we should do. We got a whole bunch of ideas, and it's continuing today in Washington. And here's my hope, guys. There's a bid and an ask here. There's a conversation between the exchanges and investors in this country to figure out how to do this better. We should all agree we can do better.
But what's your answer to that question?
Yeah, where does it meet in the middle?
Is it okay to charge $5 but not $10? Is it okay to charge $1,000 but not $100,000? What is the answer? Is this a utility that needs to be regulated heavily, or is it a for-profit corporation? Well,
what you have to do, I can't set the proper price. What should happen is the market should set the price. And here's the problem.
Okay.
What the exchanges are doing is coming to us and asking again and again to increase prices without proving that it's competition that leads to those fee increases. That's their burden.
So you have a really low view of these people running these exchanges. Then.
No, sir. I have a high view of them. They're trying to make money, which is what they're paid to do.
Exactly.
I'm trying to protect investors, which is what I'm paid to do.
What it looks like is that you've got the Mercedes drivers, the Goldmans, and you got the Range Rover drivers at the exchanges, and it's who's going to split up the pie, and you're making it sound like it's the Chevy Cruise people that are out in the public. You're hanging it on them. You're trying to help them. You're really just arguing between the two.
No, man. To believe that, you have to believe that Goldman doesn't pass on those costs to mom and pop. And I know you know that they don't give those investors a break. At the end of the day, if the exchanges are making money, mom and pop are paying for it.
I don't know. You have a a negative view
just
of
to be
human
clear,
nature. They're not gouging. They have to prove. I hope everybody's not going to have to prove price increases. That's the SEC is supposed to. You're supposed to be catching Charlie Sheen working with Gordon Gekko trying to do the insider.
I think we should make clear the reason that they have to ask you is because they are a regulated national exchange.
That's exactly
By
right.
law.
The reason that they have to ask our permission is that when things go wrong on the exchanges, they say to us, we shouldn't be held liable. We're immune because we're a regulator.
The energy company.
If they want our protection when things
Price
go wrong,
controls.
they got to ask us for permission.
Wage and price controls. Let the markets decide.
Adina's going to be here.
Work on the
other side of
work
it.
on the monopoly side of things, and then if you're convinced that there's true competition, will you let them do what they need? This reminds me of net neutrality.
Sir,
telling companies that invest trillions of dollars that they're not allowed to charge for the people that use the stuff they've laid out all the capital for.
My commitment to you here today is if they can prove that competition is driving those price increases, we'll permit them. The law requires it.
What would they have to show you? What would be a basis for proof on that?
Well, what they'd have to show is that when they're increasing prices, there's actually competition, that people are making choices, that people don't have to sign up for their data fees. Let me give you an example of what worries me about this. In a world where connectivity gets cheaper every day, what all of you pay, what I pay for my phone, for internet, is getting cheaper every day. The exchanges have raised prices on connectivity in this country.
But overall trading's gone down.
Year after year.
But overall trading has gone down, and the cost of trading has gone down.
And that's a great place to hide extra fees, like increasing the price to connect to the exchanges.
All right.
Is there an argument made between this and net neutrality, or is it a different situation?
Well,
net neutrality,
if you make it a utility, if you make Comcast and AT&T a utility,
well.
Let's just be clear. We didn't make them a utility. What happened here is that the exchanges have taken on massive amounts of power, and they're using it to increase prices. Now, look, at the end of the day, what my commitment to all of you and what the law requires is that if competition leads to price increases, I have no problem with that. But if exchanges are just...
Do you want exchanges? I want competition. I want to see competition out there, but I also want to know in a downdraft day in the market that there are one or two places that I can go and say, I know that they are going to handle this, that they're going to be responsible for it, not 5,000 different competing exchanges where things slip through the cracks and nobody's really responsible. I think there's a fine line between those two issues.
Well, that's a great point. And let me give you another fact. We have 13 lit exchanges and equities in the United States. 12 of them are owned by 3 conglomerates. Now, how many businesses do you all know that acquire the same exact businesses and instead of putting them together and grabbing economies of scale, continue to operate them separately? The exchanges are the only business I've ever seen that does that, and the reason they do it is so that they can charge connectivity to each of those places. Now, if we ever have a problem in a market event, we're going to have fragmented markets that are designed to increase exchange profits, not to assure safety and stability in our stock market.
you want less competition then.
Oh, no, sir. What I want
How you want them all together then?
No. What I want is real competition, not 12 places owned by 3 people.
So is it a red herring to say that all the SIFMA types with their powerful lobbyists, they make $25 billion, and you're talking about $200 million here?
So it's so funny because if you believe the exchange's argument that this is really about big banks, then you believe that there's no competition
It's in
for
SIFMA.
American
You're in
investors.
bed with SIFMA on all of this, aren't you?
That's funny because I'm the guy in the Obama Treasury who cut banker pay.
Oh,
So
that's
the-
no. You're not selling me here. You're not. You believe
the
me.
idea that I'm in bed with
That was the
SIFMA.
wrong thing to say.
Well, that just shows how bad their argument is, man. The idea that I'm in bed with SIFMA is insane. The fact is we have 5 commissioners on the SEC with lots of different perspectives, and all 5 of us agreed that they...
How many
improve
Republicans
competition.
are on right now? Are there 2 or 3?
There are, I have 2 Republican colleagues, terrific commissioners, Elad Roisman and
It
Hess
matters to
Schwartz.
me. Yeah.
Well, it was universal.
No, I
between all
know.
5 of them.
Well, I know, but we're different arguments.
And the next stage is we just find out what happens next.
Well, so unfortunately about the opinion speaks for itself, and the exchanges have chosen to litigate that, so I can't say more about that. But the questions you asked about what we're going to do about the 2-tiered system for data in this country, we're debating that in Washington right now, and I'm hoping Adina is going to come on and say some productive things about how to move it forward.